everybody, it's Dave here, and I've got two of me. How about that?
You can always use two of David Stefano.
And want to welcome you tonight on Christmas Eve, the night that everything is magical. Santa, not me, even though I may be dressed a little bit like him, Santa is on his way. He's Darren and I were discussing. He's probably over Greenland, probably in that area, maybe heading into the east coast of Canada before he hits the rest of Canada and the United States and works his way west. It is one of those nights where everybody has a glimmer in their eye and a hope in their heart. And we'll take this hope into tomorrow's game with the New Orleans Saints. But before that, I want to introduce my co-host, Mr. Darren Campbell, former author of Grant's Tomb, of Kick-Ass Blog, and of course of Deep Thoughts. How you doing, Darren?
I'm doing excellent, Dave. How bad can things be on Christmas Eve? Awesome time of the year, and you're looking so Santa-like now. I was just saying, man, you could be easily like a department store Santa, no problem.
Well, maybe, and if I need a little extra money, that might be viable next year, if there's malls around to have them. We shall see. Right, yeah. Now, it is absolutely one of those favorite times of year. The Vikings are technically still in it. 2%. We don't think that's going to last long. But, hey, we've got tomorrow. Hey, Jerome. Merry Christmas.
Viking Jerome. Shout out to Viking Jerome, first commenter.
Darren, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow?
I think we're going to get our asses kicked.
Well,
I did. It's I did watch I imagine a lot of people did, football fans. I did watch like the Saints Chiefs game last week because it was one of the marquee matchups, and Drew Brees looked pretty shaky most of the game, and his even his arm strength, which has been diminishing over the past few years, he was really throwing up some like lame ducks. And maybe that was partly also because he still got pretty sore ribs. Because he had like about 25 ribs that were cracked or broken or whatever it was.
It was close to that, yeah.
Yeah. So, but the Saints have some injuries too. No Michael Thomas, no Tre'Quan Smith tomorrow. Two of their main receivers, I guess. So it's basically down to Emmanuel Sanders. But really, for the Vikings to be successful, it's hard to see them stopping anybody when you can't stop Mitch Trubisky or David Montgomery.
Well, it's true. But, in the stopping department, we are down to the backups of the backups of the backups. When it comes to linebackers, we've got Eric Wilson, and then we go down to Conley.
Guys that should be on the practice squad.
If that. Conley and who was the other one?
Well, it's Hardy Nickerson.
Jr. Right?
And then that Blake Lynch guy.
And Blake Lynch, but I think
I'd rather have Jane Lynch.
But Nickerson's, I think, played like 25 snaps, and the other two have played like one apiece. And Nickerson and Conley were both cut from their teams at the beginning of the season. It's going to be a rough day. But on the Saints defense, they also have their safety out. Was it Williams?
Mark Williams is out. Hendrickson is questionable, and he's their leading sacker. Hopefully Cam Jordan will take another swing at Brian O'Neill or Ryla Reef and get kicked out of the game. But for the Vikings, defensively, you think with Thomas out and Brees, who knows? He got his one game out of the way, so he should be a little bit more acclimatized to things. But really, for the Vikings, I think they need to do what they did last year in the playoff game: is devote all your resources to stopping Alvin Kamara, because he's their leading rusher and receiver. If you shut him down, then that probably leaves Jared Cook as the number 2 option. I'd rather have Cook or Emmanuel Sanders beat me than Alvin Kamara. And of course, in the playoff game last year, Kamara got totally stuffed by the Vikings, both receiving and running. Can we do it this time without Hunter, without Griffin, without Kendricks, without on and on and on and on it goes? I don't think so.
And last year was the debut of the NASCAR package, but we don't have the people to run that now. They're going to be playing mostly probably cover 2, and hopefully those young linebackers will see that they have an opportunity to make a name for themselves and get hired next year and do something about it. Fill those gaps.
Whoever.
By whomever. Whether it's the Vikings or some other team. Yes.
Yeah.
And that is something I'm looking forward to in these last 2 games, is to see which players step up and which players have already said, I got a tea time down in Florida. I'll see you next, July or August.
Yeah, well, we know Cam Dantzler has stepped up.
Yes, we do.
In a big way the past 3-4 games. We know Gladney has answered the challenge for the most part this year, for as much as a rookie. I know as a first rounder, so you expect him to be
2 positions. Yep.
Yeah. And I liked how Warren Ludford last was talking about him being in the slot a lot, how that's a much tougher position for a corner to learn. And which was a very good point. The other problem for the Vikings, not only on stopping the Saints, but is offensively, scoring points on the Saints defense, which is a very good unit this year. Dennis Allen has done a really good job, their defensive coordinator, and they are tough to score against. Even I know the Kansas City got 32 points on them in that game, but it was if one can say it was a difficult 32 points for them, I would say that was the case. They sacked Mahomes 4 times, and they really made it tough on the Chiefs. And then late in the game, I think Hendrickson was gone for a bit of it. Jordan got tossed, so they were down significant. Williams went down in that game too. They were down 3 key guys, and they still made it tough on the Chiefs. So it'd be interesting to see again. Like Cook has really rushed the ball better than I expected, both against Tampa Bay and the Bears. Really rushed. The run blocking, the run game was excellent the last 2 games. They're going to have to be that way again, but also offensively, we're going to have to protect Cousins much better, and up the middle is where that's going to be the key. I'm not too worried about O'Neal and Reif keeping things relatively clean, but it's Dozier, Bradbury, and Cleveland. That seemed to be where a lot of the push was coming the last 2 games, up the middle, and we know that that's tough. Cousins doesn't deal well with pressure up the middle. Most quarterbacks don't, but particularly him. If you got 2 guys coming in your face as you're trying to throw, it's pretty tough. And it's so the Vikings you got to think they have to score again 25 to 30 points to even be in this game.
I'm hoping they score over 40. Do an offensive, just take off and go. But I agree with Jerome. Expecting to win is unlikely, but on any given Sunday, anything can happen. In this case, it's Friday.
Yes.
But don't get hurt, and let's see who plays. So let's move on to the next subject. Speaking of who plays, you had asked me what would it take to get Mike Zimmer and maybe Rick Spielman along with him fired. What do you think?
Yeah, I really don't feel it would. I think it'd be pretty difficult to happen for this year, but the only way that I think it initially, when the season was started so poorly, when we were 1-5, when we were in the running for like the number 1 overall pick, and when we were talking about, hey, could we get Lawrence? Could we get Justin Field? We just got to keep on losing. If you were the Minnesota Vikings ownership, if you were the Wilfs, and last year you went 10-6 and you won a playoff game, and then the next year you went 2-14 and everything's terrible, I think it's quite possible that you'd think, maybe we need to change things here with maybe Joe along with the GM, but particularly with the head coach,
Coach.
and think that it was time to go move on with Zimmer. But then, it's been a streak year, right? We went 1-5, then we went 5-1. Now we're 0-2 again. But 6-8 it's sort of respectable, right?
It's week 16, and technically 2%. We're still in it.
I feel it's going to take 2 non-playoff years for the Wilfs to consider moving on from Mike Zimmer. Possibly, though, if you get to 6-6 and you raise expectations that you're going to make the playoffs, and then you go 0-4 and crap out the final, maybe that's
like Mike Tice. Start strong, fades.
Yeah, maybe that makes the Wilfs think that we need to change something here. But I in my gut, I don't really feel that. I feel that there's enough mitigating factors and excuses that they can think of, like COVID, like, oh, well, look at the injuries we had to Burr, Hunter, and then Kendricks, that they can give benefit of they can give Zimmer the benefit of the doubt. But so I think it's unlikely that they would fire Zimmer, and particularly Spielman as well, even if we go 6-10. And just for the Viking fans out there, I do not hope that the Vikings go 6-10 and lose their last 4. I hope that, I'm happy if they win the next 2 and they go 8-8, and if the winning on Vikings wins makes me happy. But if it were to happen, it wouldn't break my heart. But not hoping
some
for
wins
it. Not hoping for it.
Some wins are more special than others. And I put that team from Wisconsin when we beat them, which we did once this year, and when we beat New Orleans, as 2 of those special wins.
Yes.
I crank up. Now, I heard an interesting story today. I was listening to Score North, and they were talking about the Mike Tice years. And when Zygi and Mark took over the team, there was a story I hadn't heard before. Lenny Wilf, and everybody forgets Lenny, but Lenny's involved too. We hear Zygi and Mark, but we don't hear Lenny. But Lenny's involved too.
We don't see Lenny either.
Right. Lenny came to a Tice meeting with the coaches or the players or whatever it was, but it was a meeting held by Mike Tice, and Lenny was late. Lenny proceeded to Mike Tice proceeded to chew out Lenny for being late and disrespectful and to get to his meetings on time. Well, from what the story told on Score North today is that didn't sit very well. Well, and then, of course, we go through that season, and we have the Love Boat and all the meathead decisions by Mike Tice. Mike Tice is good at a bunch of stuff, but on other stuff, he was just the meathead.
Well, there was a ticket scalping thing too, right? Like the Super Bowl thing. I'm not sure if that was the same year as the Love Boat, but
it may have been. But it was just, it all blew up. And then when he went against Lenny, that didn't go over well. So, of course, on the last game, he was fired. Then we go to Brad Childress. And Brad Childress was cooking along, even though most of us were a little bit frustrated with him and thought he was an idiot, including Brett Favre thinking he was an idiot. But Brad Childress, what got him fired was that, they had traded for Randy Moss back, and then Brad Childress cut him after 3 or 4 games, right? And didn't tell the Wilfs. Didn't consult them, didn't tell them to do nothing. That supposedly pissed off the Wilfs. So we know there's 2 things that piss off the Wilfs, right? You chew them out, tell them they're idiots or whatever, and you make decisions without them. That pisses them off. I don't think Mike Zimmer falls into that category. I don't think he's done anything like that. It would take him doing something like that. And when it comes to Rick Spielman, I don't think Rick Spielman's done anything like that. And there was a story I heard was related to me this week of our legendary coach that was talking about Rick Spielman and saying Rick Spielman is the type that if he had a 3-legged dog, he would be able to promote and sell you that dog as a world championship pointer.
Yeah.
He's that type of person. And so if you take that type of personality along with Zimmer's personality and you don't ruffle the feathers of the Wilfs, be it Mark, Zygi, or Lenny, I think they stay employed. Just me.
Yeah, I would agree. I think my gut feeling again would be
Not in the same way, Drew.
Yeah, my gut feeling would be like again, even at 6-10 this year, they probably aren't going to pull the trigger. But the other part of this that I wanted to talk about was not will Zimmer get fired, which I don't think he will now, but should he get fired? And that's a different kind of conversation, or a little bit different conversation. But just I jotted down a few notes,
okay,
and I was looking at a few things, but just there's many things that the frustration over Zimmer, and I'm going to focus on Zimmer here because I think Spielman's a whole other topic that we could get into just separately and on another time. But Zimmer is a guy, and there's I think frustration amongst some in the fan base, and maybe a larger, has been building since 2018, and we've got a guy. He's 64 years old now, and he's got a winning percentage of like .577. That's like third best in. Sorry, not .577. Well, no, I think it is. Yeah, that's third best in Vikings history right now. Yeah, only Denny Green and of course Bud Grant were better. So he's won a couple of division titles. He's taken us to the NFC Championship game, but it feels like that this is become a very stale, tired regime under Zimmer. There's no consistent success that we've been able to sustain. We've all heard about the even years don't make the playoffs. Odd years make the playoffs. And like 2016, we could have said, well, look at all the offensive line shit that happened. And that was the excuse. But it's happened 2 more times. And there may be no rhyme or reason to it, but it keeps happening. So that's not like a happenstance type of thing. It's become a trend with Zimmer. I don't know how he can fix that, but he cannot string 2 consecutive good years together. He's got a guy, his offensive coordinators have been like Norv Turner. Then he went to then he went to Shermer. Then he went DiFilippo. He went the young route with DiFilippo, the whiz kid. Then he went back to Kubiak after that. And this year, for like a defensive adjustments, he brings in like 99-year-old Dom Capers as a consultant. This does not seem like a guy that's on the cutting edge of stuff. Not saying that, Kubiak's offense, you could say, well, they're averaging 26, 27 points a game. They're effective. Yeah, they're effective, but that's middle of the road this year in the NFL, right? That's not a top 10 offense.
That's a good question.
That's like a 14th or 15th in the league. So,
well, when it comes to points, it's 14th.
Yeah. So, but they're still not like totally lighting it up.
No.
Even as effective as it is. I just feel, it's.
And offense this season is our strength. Everybody's back, right? Now we've had some change up on the O-lines, but I think that's actually gotten better when we're talking about Cleveland. But everybody's back except for Stephon Diggs, who went to Buffalo, and now we have Justin Jefferson, who's setting rookie records, right, for the Vikings, and is doing great. So offense is our strength. You would hope. Now, we are 5th overall in yardage, but yardage doesn't tell the whole story.
No.
Points.
When are you getting those yards?
Right. Points tells
when
the most
are you getting those
stories.
Points?
Right. And it's when you're top 5 in points is when you're generally the Super Bowl contention type team. And we're not top 5 in points. On the defensive side, last year and previous years, we were top 5 in defense with points against, right? But we aren't this year by far. We're way down the list. We're in the 20s. But it's that points for and points against that if you look at Super Bowl teams and championship teams, the last 4, if you want to go championship games, they're always in that top 5 range, right? At least on one side of that scale, and usually top 10 on the other, right? And we haven't had that this season at all. And you would look at that offense and you would say, well, why haven't we? And it's obviously comes down to, well, it's not because the talent isn't there, because we do have talent. I mean, Kirk Cousins has his flaws, and I've gone over that extensively. But we have the talent there to go out and score 35, 40 points a game. But it's how the game is called, whether it be Zimmer or whether it be Kubiak or whether it be Zimmer and Kubiak giving kisses before the game, ahead of time discussing it, it doesn't happen. And if it would happen, the Vikings, in my opinion, would be a lot better off.
Yeah, and I just kind of to top it off is with I talked about seems like a stale, tired kind of coaching regime. I don't to expand on that just a little bit more. Do you get the feeling? I don't get the feeling anymore that that this is a team that's ascending. Like we seem to be like being on a treadmill, right? To my mind, and it almost kind of feels that we seem to be in kind of like Jerry Burns late territory here. If you remember Burnsy, and we all love the guy, but he was
especially his press conferences.
Yeah, salty press conferences. But he was 6 years. He was the head coach. He took the Vikings to an NFC Championship game. We were like this close to getting to the Super Bowl, like one pass, and had a couple other strong years. But then his last two, he finished 6th and 10, and then his final year he went 8-8, and he retired. I thought he actually had gotten fired, but I looked it up, and he actually retired after that season, after the 91. And so I don't know if the Vikings ownership at that time weren't ready to fire him. He retired and solved that problem.
Well, they may have asked him to retire.
Maybe, yeah. And then they hired Denny Green, which was a very successful hire. But Burns had taken us as far as he could take us, and that happens with so many coaching regimes. And I feel that Zimmer. And last year I was not in favor of firing him. I wanted to keep him on. They did keep him on. And this year we've just gone back to the old, don't make the playoffs, mediocre stuff. And I just feel that we need to try something new. We need some new blood in there, infuse the roster with a new voice, new ideas, try something different, and see if we can be great instead of just good.
Well, I think with that defense that he built,
look what the backers did. They canned Mike McCarthy after two subpar seasons. He won a Super Bowl with them. He won a Super Bowl. How many division titles did they win under McCarthy? Not because he's such a great head coach, but he had great quarterbacks. But it happens, right? Like it's time for the Vikings ownership to make that change, and I think that they should do it this year, but they're not going to.
No, I don't, because I think they view this year as the mulligan year. There's a rebuild on the defense.
Except 2016 was a mulligan. That was the first mulligan. Now we're on to the second mulligan.
Well, they're generous. 2016 was hard to see. That came out of the blue. This one, you could see because they released players. They're rebuilding somewhat on the defense, quite a bit on the defense. But the offense seemed good enough to make it good, and Mike Zimmer's talents at coaching defense is still good. I mean, he's done a hell of a job coaching, even with, backups of backups and rookies and stuff like this. This year, we have done some things that have shown promise that you wouldn't expect. Now,
but it's the whole roster.
But it's the whole roster thrown together when you consider the defensive line that's crap, right? He's developed the corners, which were rookies, which we were worried the most about. They're doing okay, doing very well for corners in their first year in a position that takes a while to learn in the NFL level, right? But he can't get the offensive side, the whole philosophy on how to score points and just drives me crazy. But they're going to take this year and look at it, well, It's a quasi-rebuild year. We had COVID. We had people out from the beginning, starters. We're now down to backups of backups, right? We don't expect him to do great things because of this, because most coaches wouldn't. I don't care.
Yeah.
Take any coach off the top of your head, including Bill Belichick, give him this roster and see how much better are they going to do with this roster. Now, part of the coaching question is, how much does Zimmer have effect on the makeup of the team? That's where we get into Spielman more, because Spielman's supposedly in charge of personnel. And then you get into all the bad decisions that came since 2017 that have compounded to put us in the position where we got to start rookies and backups of backups, because we can't hire anybody of quality because we don't have any money beyond that.
Yeah. Well, there's roster construction, and then there's also what do you do with that roster, and like offensively and defensively, and just offensively, like we don't do any. The Vikings don't do any heavy motion.
No,
like you see the
which
Buffalo
drives you
Bills
crazy,
do,
because motion helps the quarterback read as to what the defense, what coverage they're doing, and where to exploit spots. One, you put somebody in motion, right? Say Adam Thielen goes in motion behind. If the corner one follows him, obviously he's man on man and he's covering Adam Thielen, right? If the whole defensive line shifts and the linebackers shift, they're then shifting to power, because with the motion you've moved the power side, or could have moved the power side. Then you know your blocking assignments change. But if they don't move, that means they're going with this, right? Which means you can attack that. It's football is, if anybody's played chess, that's probably the closest I can think to a deal. It's very much you're looking at who moves where, who's got this coverage, how to make them show that they've got this.
Yeah.
And then exploiting when you know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
We aren't seeing that. And that is, I'm getting, my blood pressure's going up. It's infuriating, because a good coach, Kubiak,
didn't mean to do that.
Kubiak should be good enough to see that, especially from his vantage point way up in the booth, right? He should be able to watch that and at least relay it in after the fact and say, next time, watch for this. But it doesn't seem to get that. And Mike likes Gary Kubiak. They get along. They're two good old boys, right, to get along.
And Kubiak will do what Mike wants, which is run the ball a lot.
Yeah, but I think Kubiak wants to run the ball a lot. I think they both do.
No, that's right. Yeah, so it's a
mutual,
their philosophies mesh.
Right. And what would do better for Mike is to get somebody to take that offense and go, no, I can see these things. This is how we attack it. And it may be a play action pass or an RPO, and then we go, throw it this way. And explain to Mike in a way he can understand it, and that may be part of it.
I think that only happens when Zimmer is 6 feet under.
We don't know. And as Vikings fans, we suffer because it is what it is.
So, yeah, I did. So, will Zimmer get fired? No. Should he get fired? In my opinion, yes.
My opinion, no. They're going to give him another year, and we'll see.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree they will, but I would wish that they would not. Because next year we're going to be 10-6, maybe 11-5, maybe we win the division. One playoff game.
Maybe
that'll
two.
be about it. Rinse, repeat.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Magic can be caught in a bottle. Like I've said before, it took Andy Reid 21 years to win a Super Bowl. And he's not considered an offensive genius.
Yeah, no, that's right. And he got run out of Philly at the end of it, which we kind of
for much of the same stuff.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. Couldn't get them over the hump, blah, et cetera, et cetera.
Even though he had
can't manage-
talent, he had talent on that team up the wazoo. So, anyways, your next question, and it'll be the final one of the night, which is a good one. Drew.
Dave wants Zimmer to. Dave will give Zimmer one more year. Drew, that's my gut
Drew,
on this.
I think Spielman's more the issue than Zimmer, but like I've said before, I think all three being the third one is Kirk Cousins, who I objected to from the beginning. All three need to go. That is my statement. I stand by that. Now, do I think after this year Zimmer is going to get another year? Yes. I don't think there's anybody out there right now that's a hot prospect that's going to step in or that the Wolves are going to love to take over the team if they shit can Zimmer or if they shit can Zimmer and Spielman, which I hope Spielman goes. But yes, I've said fire all three. Now, the last question was, is this the last time Kyle Rudolph is out again for this game?
Yeah.
Due to injury. Have we seen the last of Kyle Rudolph in purple?
Yeah, and the way these things seem to go, Dave, is that it'd be unlikely that if he's missed 3, that the Vikings would put him in the season finale, especially if there's no playoff implications, which there won't be. Let's just get that out there now. After tomorrow's game,
barring a Christmas miracle.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it would mean that Kyle Rudolph would have missed the last 4 games of the season, and so his last game would have been against Jacksonville. Yeah. Did he play in the Jacksonville game? Is that where he got hurt?
I don't remember.
I can't. Yeah,
I did. I pulled up a picture, but I didn't load it of him against Dallas.
Yeah, no pictures so far in this show, Dave. What's going on?
It's just
You're slow on the draw.
No, I'm in not a great mood.
Oh.
I'd rather be like Ted Glover, spending time with my grandson, than talking Vikings football. But this is Vlogmas, and I'm all in 100% to do videos. I think Kyle Rudolph, we've seen the last of him in purple, and he will not be with us next year. I think Irv Smith and Conklin have done enough to prove that we don't need him. We may draft another tight end, but it'll be to back those guys up. Yep. And Rudolph's expensive salary will be let go, and we'll save some money because the salary cap's going down. He'll be one of a few veterans that we won't see back next year.
Yeah, the Vikings have a few decisions to make on vets. Like there's Rudy, there's Riley Reif, there's Anthony Barr, Anthony Harris for sure, and possibly the Hitman too. Maybe even Adam Thielen. I don't see that one, but
I don't see that one. I was thinking, other possibles are, like you said, Barr, Reif is a possibility.
And Harris, they would have to re-sign to an extension anyway. But you look at Rudy. He's a guy who's been he was pretty much an afterthought in the passing offense this year. His cap hit next year is $9.45 million, which I was just looking up over the cap, and that's the 5th highest salary out of 170 some tight ends in the NFL. If you cut him before June the 1st, you'd get the Vikings would have to eat some cap, but it's like $4.3 million. So you'd save about $5.1 million by cutting Rudy. When we've seen already, you've got younger guys like Conklin has really stepped it up these last 2 games and shown that he can. They never threw him the ball. He was in basically to block all the time the past.
But he can catch, whereas Irv Smith dropped a touchdown last week.
That's right, and Irv's been a little bit disappointing this year, but he's only been in the league 2 years, and we know he's got
Right.
good talent. So, but Conklin's he's making next year, he'll be making just under $1 million a year. Irv Smith's be making $1.6 million a year. They're both young, and yeah, you can draft. The Vikings can just draft a guy, and like the third day of the draft, a blocker, a David Morgan type, like they always can, to add depth, and we should be good to go. Rudy at his salary, even if you were to like restructure him, I don't think that's a very good use of the money.
Because I don't think his talents, his physical talents, he can catch anything thrown to him, but his speed and we always joke about his run after catch has gone to crap. Clifford asks, what about his post-June 1 cut? How much of a dead cap space is there then? Did you look it up?
I didn't look it up, but those are always larger, right? Like that.
Not necessarily. Sometimes they're smaller.
Yeah. I don't think the over the cap actually listed that, so I would have to. But that is a very
they've
very
got a
good
button
question.
where you can look.
But at that point, you would think that the Vikings would make the decision
beforehand, so they can go into the draft knowing what they need.
Well, the draft is over, but you go into training camp with the guys that you're going to be using, right? And also for a veteran like Kyle Rudolph, who's done so much for the community, and been, and I'm going to get into this in a minute, and being the player that he has been for the Vikings, you want to give him an opportunity, if he wants to keep on playing, to make another team at his choosing. And so I agree with you, Dave. Rudy is not going to be back. If the Vikings restructure him and bring him back, I think that is a mistake, because Conklin and Smith can give you what he can give you and be much cheaper. And really, I think that Rudy being there is holding back Smith and being able to contribute the way I think that he can. But if this is Rudy's last season as a Viking, I just want to recognize maybe what an underappreciated player he is. And if Steve Jordan is the gold standard for Viking tight ends, and Jimmy Kleinsasser being the other, but being more on the blocking side of things.
Right.
And Dave, I know you love Kleinsasser, man. You love Jimmy K. But let's just throw out some stats here about Kyle Rudolph in the 10 years he's been a Viking. He's 10th, and I didn't realize some of this as well until I looked it up on Pro Reference on the Viking database, but he's 10th all-time in receiving yards. He's 5th all-time in receptions, 5th all-time in TD catches. Steve Jordan had 498 receptions. Rudy's got 453. Steve had a lot more receiving yards, but when it comes to touchdown catches, Rudy has 48 in his career, and that's 20 more than Steve Jordan had in his career as a Viking. And Rudy was also a do-it-all tight end. Like, he wasn't just in there to catch. They made him block a lot, like block defensive linemen, and he wasn't one of these Travis Kelce guys who's more or less just a glorified wide receiver who happens to be 6'5". Huge guy, could catch everything. Very rarely did Rudy drop a pass that was catchable. He only has 2 career fumbles in 10 years. 10 fucking years. He's fumbled twice, and one of them was 5 weeks ago against the Bears, and that wasn't even really a fumble. He was a dependable red zone threat. In a few years, he was the only red zone threat we have. Rudy has been a very, very, he's not going to make the Hall of Fame, but he's been a very, very good Viking. And I don't think that we've appreciated his contributions to the team as much as maybe we should have. So I wanted to throw out some of those numbers to show where he ranks in the Viking history, which goes 61 years or whatever it is now.
Well, we're in our 60th season.
Yeah. So. Just showing where he ranks. He's up there. And we would have liked him to be have more wiggle and maybe do a little bit better, be a little bit more explosive. But man,
blocking
the guy was
early. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The guy has been productive. And
he has been productive, and he's been great for the community.
Yes.
And he's one of those guys like Jimmy Kleinsasser that a few years from now we're saying, why aren't they in the ring?
So if Rudy is no longer a Viking in 2021, I just want to clap my hands for being a great Viking. Maybe I'm doing it too early. Maybe he'll be back, but Kyle Rudolph is
I don't think so.
A1 by me.
Jerome asked, what about Anthony Barr? I think if Anthony Barr's back, he's got to take some sort of pay cut or renegotiation because of the salary cap going down and he not producing squat this year.
Well,
it was game one that he got injured.
Well, it's not only that, but I think Barr's cap hit next year is going to be something like
$13 million.
Yeah, 13 mil. That's a lot of.
That's a lot of change.
That's a lot of coin for a guy that you're always thinking I can't think when his last splash play was. Like
the strip sack against the Buccaneers about what 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Well, that's 2014, Dave. That's like Bridgewater was a rookie then. Well, so was he. But and I always liked Barr, and I felt that maybe he was a little bit. He did things that maybe we didn't totally appreciate, but when you're making $13 million, you should be putting up some of similar stats to what like Eric Wilson is doing this year. Look at Merlin. Look at that guy.
Merlin, he likes the hat. He sees the ball. He wants the ball.
He's going to chew on it.
Remember a few months ago, he was just a wee little puppy?
Yeah.
He's not so wee anymore.
No.
He's a big boy. 9 months old, still growing. He's a good
dogs.
Anyways, with that, what are your final words for tonight? Since we've gone longer than anticipated.
Yeah, I was hoping we could wrap up in 30 minutes, but I talked too fucking
Well,
much.
so do I. We're going on 45. Yes, you're
yeah. Well, yeah. I don't even know if I'm going to watch much of the game tomorrow. I probably will, but so I'm hoping the Vikings win, but I'm not very optimistic. I think they're probably going to lose by a couple of touchdowns. And then,
like I said, anything could happen on any given day in the NFL. So we have that hope.
We do always hope. Tomorrow's Christmas Day, so even if the Vikings lose, it'd still be a good day.
Yes, it will. And with Christmas upon us, we want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and hope you're safe, healthy, and enjoying family if you can, and good friends if you can. But by all means, good beverage, good food, and let you know we all love you. And we'll see you tomorrow after the game for Good Morning Gjallarhorn in the Raw live. And until then, Merry Christmas all. And go Vikings. Skol!
Skol, baby!
Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skol, everybody.